if we're all set to go, I'm gonna go ahead and just admit everyone from the waiting room. Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We'll get started shortly. We're gonna let everybody take a minute to get situated and settled in.
مساء الخير جميعا. سوف نبدأ بعد دقيقة.
Amar, we haven't started interpretation yet, so just give us one moment. Courtney, go ahead, and then I will share the interpretation announcement, and we'll open the interpretation channels.
Yeah, we'll get started in just a moment. We're gonna do a round of introductions, and interpretation is being provided this evening in Arabic, Portuguese, and Spanish. And the interpreters we have for this evening will give you some instructions as we get ready to start the presentation. Once again, thank you for joining.
Para poder interpretar va a haber un botón disponible por la parte de abajo de su pantalla y puede apretar ese botón en español y así va a poder acceder a la interpretación.
Thank you, Joanna. Yasmin, do you mind giving the explanation in Arabic?
مساء الخير، أهلا بحضراتكم. إذا أردتم الاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة العربية من فضلكم يمكن الضغط على الزر بالأسفل على شكل كرة أو كرة أرضية، وبعد ذلك تختاروا اللغة العربية. واللغة العربية للأسف مسماه اللغة الصينية Chinese، لأنه لا يوجد مسمى للغة العربية على هذا البرنامج.
Thank you. And Diego, do you mind giving the explanation in Portuguese, please? You are currently muted.
Boa tarde. Se você quer escutar a apresentação em português, você vai ver que você vai olhar na pantalla que vai estar escrito português. Você pode ingressar no canal de português para escutar a apresentação na sua língua.
Thank you. So I will open the interpretation channel now, and the interpreters will be able to start interpreting in each of your channels in just a moment. So interpretation should be on now. Courtney, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, give me 1 second. Tom, if you want to share your screen. All right. Good evening, everyone.
Buenas tardes, todo el mundo.
My name is Courtney Lewis.
Me llamo Courtney Lewis.
I'm very happy to join you all this evening to discuss home-based childcare in Revere. I'm also joined this evening by my colleague from MAPC, who will introduce herself in just a moment, and she will also share some housekeeping items before we get started.
The interpretation in Spanish It's not being listened, they said in the chat.
Give us just 1 second.
Yeah, give me just 1 second. Can we do a test briefly? Joanna, can you do a test? And then Olga, if you're able to just let us know if it's working in Spanish.
Yeah, I'll pick Spanish.
Thank you.
There you go. Yes, you click again and then you pick English.
Are you able to hear, Olga, the Spanish channel?
Yeah, I switched over and you can hear them.
I'm listening her in English.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sí,
All right.
pero no escucho la traducción al inglés o al español, so. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So,
Thank you, Olga.
yeah. So tonight's presentation will be recorded and posted on Revere TV. And it will be posted so those who weren't able to join will be able to view the presentation at their convenience. We encourage everyone to use the chat function to submit questions. Next slide. Here is a look at tonight's agenda. We're going to start with a brief
En mi
welcome.
caso, la agenda, vamos a comenzar con una bienvenida breve.
We'll do a Zoom poll so that we
Vamos
get a
a
better
comenzar
sense
con
of
una encuesta Zoom para tener mejor sentido.
who is in the room this evening.
¿Quién está en la sala esta tarde?
We will talk a little bit about the project,
Nosotros vamos a hablar un
and
poco acerca del proyecto,
some of the existing regulations.
algunas de las regulaciones existentes.
We'll then discuss proposed changes and talk about next
Luego de
steps.
eso hablaremos de cambios propuestos y
Sorry,
próximos
but I
pasos.
think we need to fix the interpretation. It's not working. I pick English, I pick Spanish. I'm not sure if the other languages are running into the same issue. I can hear both. Even
Yeah.
though I pick English, I hear both at the same time.
Yeah, I think Les, you might have gotten kicked out of the Spanish channel. And I can't seem to add you back in. So I wonder if Joanna could take over for a minute while we figure that out. Okay, I think
Corey, would you like me to walk us through the group agreement?
if you don't mind, that would be great. While I
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so these are just a few agreements that we collectively agree on as we
Colectivamente
meet
estamos de acuerdo.
in the space this evening. We ask that you use I statements when speaking or sharing. Take space, but also make space for others. So if you asked a question or commented, please make room for others to do the same. Listen to what people are saying and listen for understanding, not necessarily to respond. Share the lesson, not the story. So don't give away too many details or tell anyone's personal business. And also mute yourself when you're not actively speaking or until you're recognized by the speaker presenter. All right. So this project, this is the project team. MAPC has been working with the city of Revere since last fall on this project. We have members from city staff who feel free to introduce yourself. This project has also been guided by an advisory committee from various community partners who have helped, who have contributed and provided expertise to some of the recommended changes.
Tem algumas mudanças e alguma recomendação.
So, city staff, if you'd like to briefly unmute and introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Danielle Osterman, and I'm the Community Development Program Manager with the City of Revere.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Asma Abufuda. I'm the Language Justice Coordinator for the City of Revere under the Office of the Talent and Culture.
And I'm Tom Skrosky. I'm the Chief of Planning and Community Development. I'm not on the PowerPoint, but you'll hear from me in a minute.
And my name is Maria. I am the Chief of Talent and Culture for the City of Revere. I am not a participant of past conversations, but I look forward to join and see how I can assist.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olga Takure. I'm the Executive Director of Women Encouragement and Empowerment, and I'm part of the committee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ana Rodriguez. I'm a community representative for Revere, and I'm a childcare provider too. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sylvia Chiang, and I am from the MGH Center for Community Health Improvement, and I'm also part of the advisory committee. Nice to be here. Thank you.
All right, I think that's everyone. So we can transition to the next slide. As I said, Gloria and I are from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, and we are the regional planning agency for Greater Boston. We serve and provide technical assistance to the 101 cities and towns throughout the Greater Boston metro area. Our mission as an agency is to promote smart growth and regional collaboration. All right. So very quickly, we are going to do a quick Zoom poll, and I am going to launch those right now. And we would like to know how you would describe yourself. The first choice is parent or guardian looking for childcare. The second choice is parent or guardian of a child that is currently participating in a childcare program. The third choice is a childcare provider. The fourth choice is parent or guardian and a childcare provider. And choice 5 is an interested community member. Next slide. We also want to know if you participated or joined us at the first forum in December. I'm going to give it just another second, and then I'm going to end the poll. Okay. All right, so I've just ended the poll, and I'm going to share those results. It looks like most people are providers, and the majority of folks who are with us tonight also joined us back in December at the first forum. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the project itself. The city wanted to look at reducing barriers to employment opportunities and job training. This project was pretty much spearheaded by the planning department, and it aligns with goals that are outlined in the city's workforce development plan, which I believe was produced in 2021. And the purpose of the project was to amend the existing zoning ordinance to remove zoning barriers and help develop more home-based childcare facilities throughout the city, and also provide greater and more equitable access to childcare, help increase economic stability for home-based childcare providers, and adequately prepare youth to be able to transition into school. There were 4 different components to the project. We started by looking at data and reviewing state and local childcare regulations and researching some best practices from surrounding municipalities. We then hosted a forum back in December to gather ideas and to hear issues and concerns about that residents were facing when it came to finding good quality childcare. The project partners hosted hosted focus groups earlier in the year to help clarify some of the issues and challenges related to home-based childcare. And we have drafted an amended zoning ordinance that we will share at the end of the presentation that the planning department will submit to City Council for consideration later this spring.
Great. And I guess I'm taking it from here, everybody, to talk a little bit about the process from Revere and how we took it from all of the work that the advisory committee had put together and kind of what brought us to this position today. So good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Skorowski. I'm the Chief of Planning and Community Development for the City of Revere, and wanted to talk with you all about how we developed this plan to increase the access to home-based childcare in the city of Revere by reducing our municipal barriers to that access. So as Courtney had mentioned, the impetus was really our 2021 workforce development strategy, which focused in on improving access to childcare as a key action item. And of course, childcare is an important workforce development strategy everywhere, but to think specifically about why it's so important in Revere, it's really critical to take a look at the numbers. So first and foremost, childcare in Massachusetts is astronomically expensive. And it is the second most expensive state, and actually second only to the District of Columbia. The average cost of annual infant care is almost $21,000. And, if you compare that up to the median household income in the city of Revere, that's about 30% of a family's income just for infant childcare. So you can begin to think about why this would pose some really serious workforce challenges. But as you dig into the data, it tells that story a bit further. So that $21,000 equates to almost $1,800 a month. Average 4-year-old childcare costs is about $15,000 a year or $1,200 a month. And to put all that into context, infant care is 63% more expensive than in-state tuition at a 4-year college, and it costs 31% more than average rent. And now I want to have us all just for a second think about what this means for families in the city of Revere, and specifically a family of 4. If we consider again that the median household income in the city is about $73,000, that means an average family has about 6,000 a month in median monthly income for a family of 4. Once you take into account the average cost of infant care per month, once you take into account the average cost of 4-year-old's childcare, and then of course layer that on top of the average monthly rent for a 3-bedroom, state and federal taxes. And I should note in this model, I didn't exactly consult a tax advisor. I just made my best guess here, but we can kind of work within those constraints. And then take off the monthly cost of groceries. And this is taken from the Economic Policy Institute, the same institute that made the cost estimates for the average cost of childcare. But basically, if you take a look at the monthly income for a family of 4 in Revere, take all these factors out, what you ultimately come to is a net monthly income of negative $14,000. So what that means roughly is that for a family of 4, it is virtually impossible to have 2 kids in childcare and still have jobs at that median household income. And the situation doesn't get much better when you raise the income. So were you to consider a family of 4 with a household income of 6 figures, $100,000, you still would be looking at a net monthly income of about $375. That doesn't take into account car payments. It doesn't take into account car insurance, right? Saving for retirement, any type of discretionary income, after school childcare for children. And it paints a pretty bleak picture for families in Revere. And I think it should be pretty clear to everyone tonight, looking at this data, why we wanted to take on improving access to childcare in the city. Because often what happens with families dealing with a situation like this is one of 2 things. One is that families are scraping by with just enough money to get by, not putting any money into our local economy, not saving for retirement, not saving to buy a home one day, but just having enough to survive. And of course, the other often scenario here is that somebody leaves the workforce, and most often that would be a woman, right? And so we're also dealing with a case where the cost of childcare, the astronomical cost of childcare in the state, is driving women out of the workforce. And so hopefully now you can understand why we wanted to take this on as part of our workforce development strategy. It's so critically important. And, we wanted to really compare our regulations locally with those at the state level to see what we could do to reduce barriers to childcare, home-based childcare specifically. And one of the reasons we felt like this is something we could do is that there's already a pretty rigorous regime of permitting and licensing at the state level for childcare. And that starts at the EEC, the Early Education and Care arm of the state. And we actually have a representative from the EEC, our regional director, Kelly Meehan, is here with us tonight. And certainly, I'm sure in the Q&A could share some more information about the state certifications and licenses required. But suffice it to say, they have rigorous licensing, certification requirements, capacity standards, minimum square footage ratios, and a host of other regulations that regulate childcare in a home for up to 10 children. These diagrams outline it further. I know a lot of you probably saw this in the first public meeting, but basically outlines exactly the square footage requirements for 1 to 2 children, 3 to 6 children, and then anywhere between 7 and 10 is an additional 35 square feet per child. And any home-based childcare of 7 or more children requires an additional employee to help support that work, which we'll talk about in a second. Then to look at the local regulations and how that's different from the state level. Most importantly, the City of Revere's current zoning ordinance allows family childcare home providers for only up to 4 children. So again, the state regulations allow for up to 10, but we've actually regulated at the local level to limit it to just 4 children. And in addition to that, you need to receive a special permit from the City Council. And to understand why that's so important in the zoning world, and I'm a zoning nerd, but there's kind of 2 important types of development that a city can allow. One is by special permit, and one is to allow it by right. And when you allow something by right, it's exactly what it sounds like. The assumption is that that is a business that you can do in the city. When something is allowed by special permit, the assumption is it's special. It's something that the applicant needs to go above and beyond to show why this fits within the character of the neighborhood. So what we have done in effect in the City of Revere is limited home-based childcare to 4 or less children. And through the special permit process, created a great deal of uncertainty for providers to enter into the market in the city. And again, you can see in this diagram kind of how those same space regulations play out for families and home-based child care providers in Revere. And here's what it looks like in terms of our zoning. You can see in red the areas where it's currently prohibited in zoning, and in the sort of orangish yellow color, you see those areas again where it is allowed, but only by special permit in the city. And so our current ordinance allows family childcare homes by special permit in 12 of our 18 zoning districts. And the ones you see in red are, largely our highway business, our industrial districts, areas where you likely wouldn't see a lot of home-based care. So that does make sense. But we wanted to take a look at what we could do, again, to reduce barriers, to increase the supply of home-based childcare providers. And we are proposing a few important tweaks to our zoning ordinance. First and foremost, we're increasing the maximum number of children in a home-based care from 4 to 10 to align with the state regulations. We are allowing childcare homes with 6 children or fewer by right. Again, not by special permit, but by right. The assumption is it's something you can do, and removing that special permit requirement. We're doing the same with 7 or more children with an improved family child care assistant. And again, this aligns with the state level regulations for what's required with 7 or more children in home-based childcare. And you can see here on the chart exactly how we're shifting this proposed regulation. So anywhere from 1 to 4 children currently by special permit, and currently 5 to 10 children is prohibited. And again, we are now proposing that we allow it by right from 1 to 10 children, but for 7 to 10, you would need that approved family child care assistant. Again, which is not a new regulation, it's just aligning with the existing state regulations on the matter. And you can see how it would play out in our zoning. Basically, everything that you saw before in yellow and orange is now green, where in most residential areas in the city, it would now be allowed by right. Again, aligning with everything we had just mentioned. a few other technical changes we had to make along the way. And I know these three in particular were developed after discussions in the previous forum and focus groups that followed it. One of which was there's a current prohibition in our zoning ordinance that does not allow home childcare facilities in properties where there's a pool. Again, we'd remove that requirement, and we would, note the importance of aligning with our swimming pool enclosure regulations, which already states that a swimming pool must be fenced in, must be locked off, must be inaccessible. And again, we would be leaning on the rigorous state level regulations and inspections to make sure that those would be done in accordance with state laws. We're still retaining the original requirement that a business register with the city clerk, so there's no change there. And we are instituting, and this was, I think, after some of the discussions had in the previous forum and the focus groups, a component of the zoning ordinance that would basically state if there's another large family daycare home or child care center within 300 feet of where a new one is looking to locate, then you still would need a special permit from the city council, just to make sure that we're not clustering too many of these centers in one area, which could present some challenges to the neighborhood. And then lastly, we look to create some new definitions within our zoning ordinance that, once again, just better align with the state regulations on family-based childcare facilities. So that's things in a nutshell. I'm sure a lot of folks have questions, and we'll get to that in just a second. But in terms of what our next steps will be, the Department of Planning and Community Development will be working in the next month to submit a petition to initiate a zoning change. And we'll bring that to the City Council in April. From there, the City Council and the Planning Board would hold public hearings to discuss this proposed zoning change, and then make a final decision on that amendment application. Courtney's going to talk a little bit more about this in a second, but when we do get to those public hearings, this would be a great opportunity for everybody that's on the call this evening to voice their support, I hope, for these changes, and to talk about just how important they are to both family childcare providers, which I know we have a lot of those on the call today, but also to parents and other folks in the community that care about this really important issue. So that's where we stand with regard to next steps. I'm going to hand it over to Courtney for questions.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so we're now going to open things up for questions. If you have any specific questions about the proposed amendments or the current regulations, we welcome those either in the chat, or you can use the raise hand function, and we will acknowledge you and do our best to answer any questions that arise.
And I'll just jump in briefly to note, since we are having an interpreted session this evening, if we do have a question from someone who's in one of the non-English interpretation channels, we'll invite English speakers to jump into the English channel so that you're able to hear the interpretation from either Arabic, Portuguese, or Spanish back into English. And for anyone who is in any of the Arabic, Spanish, or Portuguese channels, please definitely feel free to raise your hand, ask a question in the chat. We would love to hear from you as well. Your interpreter will just interpret into English for the rest of us. So would appreciate everyone's patience with making sure we're all able to participate fully.
Yeah, and Tom, it might be nice to stop sharing the screen for just a second, just so you can see everyone's faces for conversation, discussion. And I also want to just highlight a great point that Claudia made in the chat. She says, council public hearings are key to move these proposals forward. Please attend the hearings to voice your support. And I couldn't agree with that more. And I'm wondering if we have anyone who's joined us this evening who's participated in a public hearing and would offer, as a way to alleviate any fears or nerves, share their experience of what it's been like to speak at a public hearing, just demystify it a bit. Oh, sure. Claudia, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Yeah, so public hearings are intimidated in a way, obviously, especially when we go in front of city councils. But people need to be comfortable and get comfortable that city councilors, they work and represent residents, right? And this is part of the work they should be doing, looking at proposed changes and policies that need to be approved to better serve the residents. So it is intimidated. It actually requires some public speaking, but that's okay. That's okay. I think when we are voicing the things that we're passionate about that make sense for us, for a community, we should be feeling comfortable. So I encourage everyone to come to the city council hearings. The layout is that when they start a public council hearing, they will let the residents speak first, and then the councilors will start talking among themselves, throwing up some questions and so forth. So Louis, Courtney, I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing out that is not the most welcoming scenario, but it is necessary that we make it comfortable, because this is for us. This is for people to go over and voice their support for things that need to move forward. Thank you.
I'll also add as a resource for this particular project, we will be providing the city with a template script for anyone who would like to testify, and it will just serve as a framework to help you organize your thoughts, so that you feel more prepared, you feel more confident as you're speaking about something that's important to you.
I'd say the other thing to be inclusive to folks that might not be able to make it to a meeting or just don't feel comfortable speaking in public for whatever reason. You can always submit feedback in writing, and that's also very impactful. We'll include some more information on how to get involved in that way as well. Of course, we'd love to see you there. Public support at public hearings is critical to helping show the impact of this work, but putting your comments in writing is equally important.
I just want to check to see if we have any questions on any of the other audio channels. All right. Well, if there are no questions, we definitely want to provide you with ways to stay connected to the project. I'm going to add some links to the chat. The first link is a link to the draft ordinance. So this document will show the proposed changes and the edits that were made, and you can take time to review the document and submit any feedback via email. We also encourage you to review the ordinance prior to taking the survey. So we also are put together a short survey to gather additional information. And that is the second link that I added to the chat. And this survey will be open until the 28th, closer to the end of the month. And as Claudia and others have mentioned, definitely provide comments for at the public hearing. You can also access the survey through the QR code that's currently on screen. You can take your phone and scan it and take the survey that way. I am seeing a few hands, so I definitely want to provide space and time for people to ask questions.
Olga?
Thank you. I couldn't unmute myself. I see too many Olgas here, but sorry for that. But I just wanted to, I'm in charge of looking at the chat and some very important points that Danielle mentioned. And I know the interpreters are busy translating, so I just wanted to mention because it's very important. We've been working with the childcare providers for a while now and building the great relationship with them. Right now, we're providing trainings for them, and we're doing a lot of, we are planning to do a lot of workshops when this draft is presented or prior presenting to the city councilors, so people can be comfortable to even write a letter or an email or a phone call. So we will preparing them. And I know we've been working with them in person. It's totally different dynamics. So it's more comfortable to interact with each other. So definitely that's in our mind. And it's been in our talks with the advisory committee that we have formed. And we have them on board. So because we know that their voice is important and that's all we care. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Do you have any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
There is another Olga that has her, that is not me, by the way. We want to make sure that she has, I don't know who's that, but Olga. La que tiene su mano levantada y está como Olga, por favor, prenda su micrófono y hable.
Olga, yo levanté mi mano. No sé si sea yo.
Yeah, probably that's you.
Es Surlay. Mi pregunta es, no sé si me quedó claro con lo de Revere, que ellos están estudiando la posibilidad de pronto de, o nos van a dar licencias especiales a las personas que quieran tener de care con 10 niños.
Acho que se vocês estão me escutando, que não estou escutando ninguém. Cannot hear anybody now.
Was that the question?
So for English speakers to pick up the question, I just put this in the chat, but please switch over, if you could please switch over to the English channel under the interpretation, and then our Spanish to English interpreter will be able to interpret for us.
Então, se vocês têm alguma pergunta, pode colocar no canal onde fala o inglês, e aí qual é a língua vocês, aí estamos aqui para ajudar vocês, a pergunta que vocês têm.
Ok, yo no sé si de pronto ya entendí, pero quería preguntar, en la ciudad de Revere, si va a ser posible la licencia de 10 con algún permiso especial.
Eu sei, entendi, mas
With the current zoning regulations, you are only allowed to have up to 4 children by special permit. But were this proposed ordinance change to go through, you could have up to 10 children, but you would no longer need a special permit. You would still need to apply for your business certificate with the city. You would still need to follow state licensing and certification. And if you had more than 7 children, you would need a approved family child care assistant. But if these proposed changes went through, you would no longer need a special permit to operate a family home-based child care facility.
All right. Any more questions? Okay. Well, if not,
se não, tem pergunta mais?
It looks like we have something in the chat. In Arabic, is anyone able to translate that?
So again, in this situation, let's have everyone who is speaking English or listening in English switch over to the English interpretation channel. And then in just a moment, we'll ask one of our Arabic interpreters to interpret from Arabic into English, reading the question that's in the chat.
How about after I answer the first question? Great. So you would still be required to have a certification and a license at the state level to operate a home-based child care facility. So yes, you would need to be licensed even with this change, but just at the state level, not locally.
I can read the comments in the chat. The first one is mostly a comment rather than a question. Is we are childcare providers in the city, and we are professionals. We we provide quality service for kids, and it will be very important that the city of Revere change the ordinance that because we provide services for the community. The second, it is a question. So good evening. I have a question. From when we will be able to get a permit to provide services for 10 kids?
Well, that question depends on the actions of the Revere City Council. And the steps that we take to get there. But if we were to put a zoning amendment request to the City Council in April, in all likelihood, around May, this would go to the City Council for a public hearing. And I imagine sometime in late May, early June, provided that it was voted in the affirmative, then the zoning ordinance would go into effect and childcare providers would be able to have up to 10 children, according to our ordinance. But that's only if it passes.
Thank you, Tom. And that was a question from Olga, that it was not me again. So sorry. Just wanted to leave that for the record.
No, thank you, Olga. And it's been great to hear from so many providers tonight. I have 3 young children, 2 of which have been in home-based childcare. And not that my personal story matters, but coming to this job in the city of Revere in October, we had about a 3-month period where we could not find childcare anywhere. And just last week, we started my 9-month-old Oscar in his first week in a home-based childcare. So we've done it before. We're doing it again. We couldn't be happier with the support that we have from the professional childcare providers that have taken care of our children and allowed us to work, and allowed my wife to get back into the workforce. You guys are fantastic. I hope we can get this through to help you support more children throughout the city of Revere.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Tom. Again, if you have questions or want details or want to be more involved in the project, or you're interested in providing testimony at the public hearing, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Danielle. Our email addresses are currently on screen. We really appreciate you just joining us tonight. We appreciate everyone who has contributed to the process for this project, those who participated and gave their time in the focus groups, and you all who just made time to be here and share your thoughts. So I'm very hopeful. I think this is both the city staff and the advisory committee has been a great group to work with in terms of helping to push for changes to the regulations. And so we're here to help provide support moving forward. And unless anyone from the city has any additional thoughts, I think we will close it out here. Again, this recording will be posted on the Revere TV YouTube channel. The information, the links that I shared for both the draft ordinance and the survey will also be posted, as well as tonight's presentation slides on the city website. Thank you.